out of my peripheral vision that my cat is like snoozing away on the bed, and I'm so super jealous right now. I would give anything to sleep. Hey, it's Cindy, and oh my God, I'm so tired. I can't talk. It's really been a rough several weeks. We've celebrated 2 toddler birthdays. So my son is now 2 years old and my daughter is 4 years old, which is wild. I am a legally blind mom, so I'm in a small, isolated town. It's been rough lately, I gotta say, just gotta throw that out there. But during birthday time, I tend to reflect back on just how this wild, blind parenting roller coaster ride started and what I've learned. I've got 5 things that I think would be good tips or pieces of advice for, any new parent, or someday you want to be a parent and you have a disability. I'm visually impaired. I do have some functional vision, so that's the perspective that I will, give a lot of these tips on. However, I do think that they would be beneficial for really a variety of people with disabilities. So with that said, oh, and hey guys, if you are already a parent, like you've got some experience under your belt, I hope you participate. I really hope you put your 2 cents below in the comment section. So here are 5 things that could be good tips and pieces of advice for parents with disabilities. So tip number 1. This one is a little difficult to explain, so hopefully just hang in there and I will get my thoughts across. Tip number 1 is take time and as much opportunity as you can before your little one comes to really anticipate and mentally prepare yourself for how being a parent is going to impact your disability and how you have adapted and coped and managed it to date. Because all of that is most likely about to change. They always say when you become a parent, your entire life is about to change, and that is so true. But I underestimated how this was going to apply to my disability and how I function and adapt to it. We typically all have, the techniques and adaptations that we prefer in place. We have spots in our house that we know where this item goes and that item goes, and we have our systems of organization that we like and are used to, and for some of us, we've been doing it for years. Well, when I became a new mom, I really underestimated the fact of how all of this was going to change and how that was going to affect me. I was so wrapped up in all the new things that I was going to have to learn and figure out, how to hack this and how to adapt to that. How do I know when I need to wipe my child's nose, or the intricacies of feedings and diaper changing when you can't see, and how do I know when they've spit up, and do I have their face wiped off? You get wrapped up in all these little, new things of taking care of a baby that you lose track of how difficult it is to change and let go everything that you have learned and developed and gotten used to that point. I struggled more with that, changing everything I had done for years, than creating new things and figuring out how to care for my child. That took me off guard. When you're a new parent, you're so sleep deprived, and things that have been habitual in the past, you just go on autopilot and not realizing that what you're doing is no longer a good option because you're a parent, and it may not either be safe with a little one around, or your little one, once they start exploring their environment, they're just gonna destroy it or start chewing on it, you name it. It's just your way of doing things prior to be a parent is just not going to be a good system anymore. For example, I'll tell you this one. My husband and I used to fight over this one all the time. And it wasn't because I was purposefully doing this, but it was because I had been doing this for years and it was habitual, and I was so sleep deprived. I just, my brain wasn't going there. I was more concerned about caring for the kids. And that was leaving my charger cables out, for my phone and iPad. I don't like plugging things in and out multiple times throughout the day, every day. Plugging things in is just a visual frustration for me. So for years, I would always leave those plugged in and ready to go. However, when our kids became more mobile and started exploring, my husband was like, dude, you can't leave your cables out anymore. Like, if they start chewing on those, like, that could electrocute them. And I'm like, holy cow, did not even think about that. It was that I found was the biggest struggle. It was not adapting to all the newness of caring for a baby and trying to figure all that out. It comes naturally, guys. When you have a baby, you are so familiar. You're with that child every minute of the day, and things just, you figure it out, and it comes pretty naturally. But you're also so sleep deprived that when you are in the habit of doing certain things and you're used to certain systems and ways of adapting, when that changes, that's where I felt like my frustration and difficulty came in. It sounds like small potatoes, but like I say, when you're sleep deprived, you're like in auto mode, and you're so focused on caring for your child and all the new things that you've learned, that the things that you used to do that aren't good alternatives anymore, you just go on autopilot. And next thing you know, you're more frustrated over trying to remember everything that you're supposed to do differently now. So keep those in mind. Think about what you do and how you do it, how you have your house organized, and the places that you like to keep things, because it's a lot easier to start changing those things now, little by little, than when it happens in the moment, when you're sleep deprived and you have a lot of other things on your plate that you're trying to figure out, as far as, caring for your child, then, and adding on just changing things that you've done for years on top, it just becomes a frustration. Anyway, I hope that makes sense. If not, ask me questions in the comments. Tip number 2. This one has to do with communication. So you and your partner are really going to need to be on the same page and discuss in detail, responsibilities and what those are going to look like and expectations. My example for this would be transportation, and anyone who is blind and visually impaired and can't drive like myself, or maybe you're in a wheelchair. If transportation is a big deal before the baby, it's like doubly, triply so after you have kids, because with car seats and travel, it's just, there's a lot to juggle and there's just a lot of logistics. So my husband, though, he was used to just my typical transportation needs as far as, work and groceries and errands and just the usual weekly stuff. He didn't realize how many doctor's appointments and checkups and things like that that are required the first year for the baby as well as myself. And so he was taking off a lot of work to take us, all each to our doctor's appointments, and, it could be vaccinations and well checks and sick visits, or, there's a variety of things that occur within that first year. Not to mention all the extra errands he had to run for the baby. If we ran out of a certain thing unexpectedly, he would have to make a nightly run. Those were new things that it was a shift. He wasn't used to being the errand boy, if you will, or he wasn't used to just being the sole transporter and the sole errand runner for the family. And that was a big shift for him. All of a sudden it went from minimal driving to a lot of driving, and it was also a strain on his job. So again, I wish we had discussed before our daughter came just how many times we would have to be going to the doctor and how often, and what I needed for my care, just so that he had that heads up and he could mentally prepare, and also let his job know, like, hey, by the way, I'm probably going to be taking off 1-2 days a month for my family because, you know, my wife doesn't drive. Have those conversations, anticipate how, you know, the responsibilities are going to be divvied up and how often that's going to be and how that is going to affect, you know, your job and your spouse. And also, guys, have a contingency plan, have a backup plan, because emergencies happen and it's easy to take for granted that everything will just go smoothly. Not everything goes to plan, and so it's always good to have friends or family on standby in case your partner is unavailable, or, you know, if the strain of transportation is too much on the job. You know, it's good to have someone else in pocket to be there in case that responsibility gets a little too overwhelming. Moving on, guys, if any of this helped so far, I hope you give me a thumbs up or a comment below. Let me know what you're thinking. Tip number 3 has to do with discrimination, guys, and this can be a little touchy, and I don't mean to suggest that this is an absolute by any means, but I found I had more negative experiences with just rude comments, suggestions, or, you know, just offensive questions. Now, sometimes, guys, of course, people do not mean to ask offensive questions. You know, they don't mean, that is not their intention for it to come out that way. But just know that when you have a child, most likely those experiences will probably increase. It's bizarre to me. You know, it's been like, what, 30 years since ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, was created, and there's been a lot of progress, don't get me wrong. For people with disabilities in general, you know, overall we do get more respect and compassion and understanding, and, you know, we are treated more fairly and equally, like in the work environment. But I don't think as much progress has been made for parents with disabilities. I think that, you know, here's a scenario. If you take a person with a physical disability that's pretty obvious, you know, going down the street, doing their thing, being independent, most people probably won't, you know, have any harsh judgments or, you know, say some rude comment. However, if you put a baby in their hands, I guarantee you people are thinking it, if not saying it. And, you know, I even asked this on some of my Facebook support groups, and the responses that people told me were absolutely just crazy. People were saying like, oh, who let them have a baby? Or, is that a real baby? Oh, that can't be yours. Or just wild, weird, rude, highly offensive things like that. Now, personally, I have not had anyone tell me that I should not be a parent because I'm legally blind. However, I have had people suggest that maybe I only have one child, as if, you know, I'm only able to take care of myself and one child because I'm blind. And if I have more than one, I would be a bad parent or something. I have no idea. I know most likely they did not mean it that way. However, it can come across offensive, right? So just keep that in mind. You are going to have more questions, more curiosities, just in general. You know, people want to know, hey, how do you parent with your disability? And that's completely fine. At least for me personally, I don't mind that at all. But I was taken off guard with how much more judgment and potential offenses there was when I became a mom. It's hard not to take some of those things personally. I'll give you one more example that I read on Facebook when I questioned my group about this. And it was, she had a guide dog and a 3-year-old. And she said people would compare her 3-year-old to a guide dog all the time, and like, oh, she must be your little helper and help you see everything around the house and guide you and all that. And of course the mom's like, no, because she's 3 and I can do all of that perfectly on my own. And so, I mean, it was just, you know, you have to almost laugh at it, because of course people don't mean it harshly, but at the same time you're like, what are they thinking? Like, how can a 3-year-old like seriously replace my eyes? Like, no. Anyway, but moving on. Okay, focus. Tip number 4. So this one might seem a bit obvious, but it is really consider your disability when choosing baby gear and baby products. If anyone is shopping for you or throwing a baby shower, make sure that they're aware of your preferences and, think about your disability as well. I personally did not do this, and so I don't want anyone else to make this mistake. I was focused more on getting a good deal and bargain shopping or looking at the ratings or reviews instead of approaching what baby gear and products I wanted, thinking of my disability. I ended up clicking all kinds of like the Baby Aveeno like squeezy tube things on my baby registry, which was great. I don't have anything against those products or squeezy tube, the applicator things, you know what I mean? However, when I ended up getting some baby wash one time with a pump, I realized, oh my gosh, why didn't I think that this would be easier for me? Like, why didn't I think about my disability sooner and realize that a pump, is going to be so much easier for me to do, number one, one-handed, and number two, I'll be able to control how much product I get. So many times, I was squeezing out way too much and wasting that. The kid would be just like completely covered in lotion, and I'm like, oh my God, I have to wipe him down because there's so much. Anyway, so think about your disability when you are choosing products, and don't just look at the sales price and ratings and reviews. Don't get distracted by all that, because your disability really does want to play a role in what you purchase as well. This also goes with baby gear, guys. My example here is, we purchased a car seat that was on sale, of course, and it was a bulky thing though. It was difficult to kind of install, and it was also heavy. So it was not the most practical choice for someone who may want to install a car seat in their friend's car to go somewhere, or, travel in an Uber that may not have a car seat option or anything like that. It would have been nice if I could have had the option to install my baby's car seat in other vehicles easily. I regretted that car seat purchase. I wished we had just splurged and got the one that was the right model that would be easier for my situation. Hopefully that helps you. If you, again, have any questions, put them in the comment section below. All right, guys, it's tip number 5. Woo! You almost made it to the end. Hang in there with me. This one's important too. This one is, be sure to include in your support system and circle of friends other moms or dads that have similar struggles and experiences with disabilities as you. I did not do this. In the beginning of my parenthood journey, I was surrounded by other sighted moms, other friends and family members. And at first, I thought this was fine. It did not dawn on me that I would really want to have another mom who was blind like me that I could depend on and bounce ideas off of and question, and just someone else to relate to. I thought in the beginning, being a sighted mom is not that much different in the big grand scheme of things as being a blind mom. I thought there really wasn't that big of a difference, and there's not. I'm not saying that there is. But other sighted moms, I sometimes just could not relate to them because their struggles were so vastly different than mine, and they did have different priorities. So there were a lot of instances when I could have used a bit more of a personable communication with someone that's just a bit beyond a post on, a huge support group on Facebook. Those 5,000 plus member support groups are great. I do recommend those. But I'm just saying, at times it's nice to have a little bit more of a deeper relationship with at least one other person that you can trust, that mirrors your same values and knows where you're coming from and just can totally relate. It's just nice to have that person in your pocket, a part of your support system. You can depend on each other. That's go so much farther than some of the Facebook groups out there, in my personal opinion. So I put a lot of weight on that, and so I encourage you to seek out other parents that you can get along with and nurture those relationships so that when you are a parent, you guys can experience that together, give each other feedback, and go through that journey on a more personal, basis. Not saying you have to be besties, guys, but I'm just saying having that extra person in your support network can go a long way. Yay, you made it to the end. Thank you so much for watching and supporting. Hopefully, if this video was helpful or just some good food for thought, give me a thumbs up. I hope you consider subscribing also. And parents out there, if you made it to the end too, I hope you put your 2 cents and any gold nugget tips you have in the comment section below as well. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.